Haley, 32, construction worker. Back hurts, hands like sandpaper. Wake up at 4 a.m. every day to bust my ass hauling steel and concrete. Provide for wife, Haley, 30, and son, Jet. Yo, 6. Haley works email job in HR, sits in AC all day, browses TikTok. Come home after 12-hour shift, covered in dust, just want a beer and silence. Instead, walk into a lecture about how I'm oppressing her because I didn't load the dishwasher correctly. Spoiler, she listened to her toxic friend Ivana again. Buckle up, Anons. This is how my marriage ended because my wife decided physics and biology are social constructs. First, you gotta understand how things were before the Great Awakening. I'm not saying our life was perfect, but it was stable. It worked. My schedule was brutal. Up before the sun, home after it set. The job is hard on the body. Some days I'd come home so tired I could barely lift my fork. But the pay was good. It paid the mortgage on our decent suburban house. It paid for Haley's car. It paid for Jet's everything. My contribution wasn't just the paycheck. I was the guy who did things. Not just taking out the trash. I mean the real stuff. The stuff that saves you from calling a guy who charges $150 just to show up. Leaky faucet in the kitchen? Give me 10 minutes and a wrench. Done. Gutters clogged with leaves after a storm? I'm up on the ladder on a Saturday morning, pulling out disgusting handfuls of wet gunk. Weird rattling sound coming from the washing machine. I'm pulling the whole thing apart on the garage floor, finding a loose bolt and putting it back together. Her car needed an oil change, new brakes, tire rotation. I did it. Saved us hundreds every year. I built the deck in the backyard. I laid the stone path to the garden. I fixed the fence when the neighbor's kid crashed his bike into it. I never asked for a parade. I never held it over her head. It was just what you did. You take care of your home. You take care of your family. Haley's contribution was the indoor stuff. Cooking, most of the cleaning, laundry. She complained about it, sure. Said she was tired after her 9 to 5. I never really got it. How can you be tired from sitting in a chair and typing? But I didn't argue. I'd just nod, eat the dinner she made, and then maybe go fix the wobbly leg on the coffee table. My work was invisible to her, because it was preventative. The power doesn't go out during a storm because I trimmed the tree branches away from the lines. The basement doesn't flood because I snaked the drain last fall. The car doesn't break down because I checked the fluids and belts regularly. To her, things just worked, magically. Then Ivana came into the picture. Ivana was one of her work friends, recently divorced, bitter as hell. The kind of woman who thinks men are trash is a personality trait. Her ex-husband was apparently some lazy guy who played video games all day. So, in her mind, all men were the same, useless parasites. Haley started having girls' night with her a few times a month. She'd come home late, smelling like cheap wine, full of new ideas. Suddenly, everything I did was wrong. Why do I always have to be the one to remember to buy milk? That's called mental load, John. You leaving your work boots by the door is a sign of disrespect. It's weaponized incompetence. I had no idea what she was talking about. I just put my boots in the garage. It was like she was learning a new language, a language of grievance. Every conversation became a trap. Every request was a power play. The final straw came on a Saturday. I think it was late spring, maybe May. I'd been up since 6 a.m. First, I patched a hole in the drywall where Jet had gotten a little too enthusiastic with a toy truck. Then I went outside to deal with the gutters. It was a miserable job, full of wet, decomposing leaves. After that, I noticed Haley's car was overdue for a brake job. The pads were squealing. So I spent the next 3 hours jacking up the car, pulling the wheels off, and replacing the pads and rotors. It's a dirty, greasy job. By the time I was done, I was covered in brake dust and sweat. I walked inside to grab a bottle of water. I left my boots on the mat just inside the door, because I still had to clean up my tools in the driveway. Just then, Haley walks in. She'd been at brunch with Ivana. She looked fresh. Nice dress, hair done, smelling like perfume. She took one look at me, then at my boots on the mat, and her face soured. Seriously, John? I just cleaned that floor yesterday. Before I could even answer, Ivana waltzed in behind her, holding a half-empty bottle of Prosecco. Ivana looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. See, Haley, this is what I'm talking about. No respect for your labor. I was too tired to be angry. I just looked at my hands, black with grease. I just spent 3 hours fixing your brakes so you don't crash into a tree, I said. Haley scoffed. Oh, please. You like doing that stuff. It's your hobby. My hobby, busting my knuckles in my own driveway so she could be safe. That's when she dropped the bomb. We need to talk, she said, crossing her arms. Ivana stood behind her, nodding like a bobblehead. From now on, things are going to be different. There are no more man jobs or woman jobs in this house. She had a whole speech prepared. I could tell she'd been rehearsing it. It was all about toxic masculinity, patriarchal standards, and emotional labor. She said that my hobby work didn't count because it wasn't a daily chore. Therefore, she was doing 90% of the household labor while I just played with my tools. The new rule was this: all household and family responsibilities would be split 50-50. No more gender roles, no more expectations. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, shopping, childcare, planning, everything. Split right down the middle. And that includes all the mental stuff, too, she finished, looking proud of herself. I stood there, silent for a long moment. I looked at her, then at Ivana's smug face. I thought about arguing. I thought about listing every single thing I'd fixed, built, and maintained in that house. I thought about explaining that a running car and a non-leaking roof were slightly more important than whose turn it was to dust the shelves. But then I looked at her eyes. She wasn't looking for a discussion. She was looking for a fight she could win. She'd already decided I was the villain, so I just took a deep breath. Okay, I said, just one word. Her triumphant expression faltered for a second. She was expecting a fight. Okay, that's it? Yeah, okay, no gender roles. 50-50. I get it. I turned, walked back outside, and started cleaning up my tools. The age of malicious compliance had begun. The first week was interesting. I made a chart, a literal chore wheel, like you'd see in a college dorm. I divided everything: cooking, Monday, Haley, Tuesday, John, dishwasher loading, alternating days. She loved it at first. She took a picture and sent it to Ivana. Equality in action, she texted. The first crack appeared on trash day. Our trash cans are those big heavy-duty ones. When they're full of a week's worth of garbage, they're heavy. It was Haley's turn to take them to the curb. It was also raining. I sat on the couch watching TV. I heard her struggling, grunting as she tried to drag the can down the driveway. One of the wheels got stuck in the mud. I heard a thump and then a frustrated sigh. She came back inside, soaking wet with a broken nail. She glared at me. You could have helped. I just looked at her. That would be reinforcing traditional gender roles. I'm just respecting your independence. She didn't have a comeback for that. The next day I did my laundry, just mine, and Jet's. I couldn't let my son go to school in dirty clothes. He was exempt from this nonsense. Haley's hamper overflowed for 4 days until she finally realized I wasn't going to touch it. She spent a whole Sunday doing 5 loads of her own clothes, complaining the whole time. Then came the cooking. I'm not a fancy cook, but I can make food that fills you up. Steak, potatoes, burgers, pasta. Simple man food. On my nights, I'd cook enough for me and Jet. Haley would come home from work and ask what was for dinner. I'd gesture to the stove. I made food for me and the kid. You're on your own tonight. It's your turn to handle your own meal prep. She started eating a lot of takeout. A few weeks in, the small things started to pile up. A light bulb burned out in the hallway closet. It stayed burned out. The kitchen sink started to drain slowly. I didn't touch it. I just made sure to wash my dishes in the bathroom. One evening, we were watching a movie and heard a loud scratching sound from the attic. What was that? Haley whispered, her eyes wide. Sounds like a squirrel, I said, not taking my eyes off the screen. Aren't you going to go check? I looked at her. Why would I? Investigating mysterious noises is a classic patriarchal trope. You're perfectly capable of checking the attic yourself. She didn't sleep well that night. The scratching continued for a week until she finally paid $200 for a pest control guy to come set a trap. The real test, though, was the spider. We live in an area where you get some big, ugly house spiders. Harmless, but they look terrifying. I was in the garage organizing some tools when I heard a shriek from the upstairs bathroom. Not just a yell, a full-on horror movie scream. I didn't even flinch. I just kept sorting screws. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Haley. Spider in the shower. Get it now. I texted back. You're a strong, powerful woman. You can handle it. I believe in you. I heard her stomp out of the bathroom and down the hall. She came back with a broom. For the next 5 minutes, it sounded like a war zone up there. Banging, shrieking, something falling over. Eventually, silence. She came downstairs later, pale and shaky. "I killed it," she said, her voice trembling. It was crunchy. "See? You didn't need a man to save you," I said with a straight face. I think that was the first time she realized this wasn't a game I was going to get tired of. My malicious compliance was starting to cost her comfort, peace of mind, and money. The car was the next major event. It was her car, the one I had just done the brakes on. A fairly new SUV, but like any car, it needed maintenance. The check engine light came on. In the old days, I would have immediately taken it to get the code read, figured out the problem, and fixed it. Now, not my problem. "Hey, there's a weird light on in my car," she mentioned one morning. "You should probably get that checked out," I said, sipping my coffee. "Can't you just look at it?" "Sorry, car maintenance falls under the old gender roles. You'll have to take it to a mechanic. It's only fair." She grumbled but did nothing. The light stayed on for weeks. Then the tire pressure light came on. Again, I used to handle that. I had an air compressor in the garage, took 2 minutes. I watched for a week as she drove around with a visibly low tire. I even mentioned it once. "Hey, your front passenger tire looks low. Might want to put some air in it." "I'll do it later," she snapped. Well, later came on a rainy Tuesday evening. I was at home with Jet, helping him with his homework. My phone rang. It was Haley. She sounded panicked. "I'm stuck on the side of the highway. I have a flat tire." I could hear the trucks roaring past in the background. "Okay," I said calmly. "The spare tire and the jack are in the trunk under the mat." There was a long silence. "You expect me to change a tire on the highway in the rain?" "It's a valuable life skill," I said. "Empowering even. There are probably YouTube videos on how to do it." "John, this isn't funny. Just come and help me." I can't leave Jet home alone. And besides, I'm not a roadside assistance service. This is exactly the kind of situation where a strong, independent woman takes charge. I could hear her sputtering with rage. "So, what am I supposed to do?" "Call a tow truck or your auto club. That's what they're for." She hung up on me. An hour and a half later, she got home. A tow truck had dropped her and the car off. She was drenched, miserable, and furious. The tow cost her $150. The tire repair shop charged her another $50 to patch the tire and fill the others with air. She didn't speak to me for 2 days. The house was slowly but surely descending into chaos. My side of the closet was neat. Hers was a mountain of clothes. My tools in the garage were organized. The rest of the garage was filled with junk she'd bought and never put away. The biggest eyesore was the lawn. Mowing the lawn was my job. Always had been. It's a hot, sweaty, loud job. So naturally I stopped doing it. The first week, the grass just looked a little long. The second week, it was getting shaggy. By the fourth week, our yard was the disgrace of the neighborhood. Weeds everywhere. The grass was almost knee-high in some places. Our neighbor, an old retired guy named Bob, even asked me if my mower was broken. I told him, nope, just respecting the household chore chart. He gave me a confused look and walked away. One day, we got a letter in the mail. It was from the Homeowners Association, a formal warning about violating the neighborhood's landscaping standards. We had 14 days to fix it or face a fine of $200. Haley threw the letter on the table in front of me. "You have to do something about this," she said. "It's your turn to manage outdoor maintenance this month," I said, pointing to the chore wheel that was still hanging on the fridge, now more of a monument to her bad idea than a functional tool. "I don't know how to use the lawn mower," she protested. "It's a self-propelled push mower, not a rocket ship. You pull a cord and you walk behind it." She stormed outside. I watched from the window. She tried to pull the starter cord. She couldn't get it. It takes a good, sharp tug. She pulled and pulled, getting redder in the face with each attempt. After 10 minutes of failing, she kicked the mower and went back inside. The next day, she hired a landscaping service. They charged $80 per visit, and they had to come twice to get the jungle under control. So, in the span of about 2 months, her little experiment in equality had cost us $200 for pest control, $200 for the tire and tow, $160 for the lawn. Over $500 that we wouldn't have spent if she'd just appreciated what I did in the first place. And things were about to get a lot more expensive. She still didn't get it. She thought I was just being difficult. She complained to Ivana constantly. I'd overhear their phone calls. He's being such a child. He's deliberately sabotaging the household to prove a point. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was doing exactly what she asked. I was letting the natural consequences of her ideology play out. The problem wasn't me. The problem was that she had mistaken competence for a social construct. She believed that the physical world would bend to her political beliefs. But a flat tire doesn't care about the patriarchy. A clogged drain doesn't care about emotional labor. And a broken furnace. Well, a broken furnace was just around the corner. The cold season was setting in. I remember it was late fall, maybe early November, because the trees were bare and there was that distinct chill in the air that promised winter was coming. Life in the house had settled into a new, dysfunctional normal. It was less of a home and more of a shared living space with a hostile roommate. We barely spoke unless it was about logistics for our son. The chore wheel on the fridge was now faded and ignored, a relic of a failed revolution. She had given up on trying to get me to do her chores, and I continued to strictly adhere to the rule of no gender roles. This meant I handled my own sphere, and she was responsible for hers. The problem was, my sphere was contained. My clothes were clean, my tools were organized, my side of the bed was made. Her sphere was entropy. It was the slow, steady decay of a system without proper maintenance. The leaky kitchen faucet she never bothered to fix had developed from a slow drip, 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 into a constant maddening trickle. The water bill had gone up by $30. She complained about the expense but never connected the dots. The slow drain in her bathroom sink had become a full-on clog. She started brushing her teeth in the kitchen. I remember one evening Ivana came over. I was in the living room, reading a book. I could hear them talking in the kitchen, their voices low but sharp. Ivana was telling her that I was engaging in malicious withdrawal and that it was a form of abuse, that I was deliberately making her life difficult to punish her for standing up for herself. I just shook my head. They were so deep in their own narrative, they couldn't see the simple truth. I wasn't withdrawing, I was observing. I was letting reality be the teacher, because she sure as hell wasn't listening to me. The real lesson, however, was about to be taught by our aging HVAC system. It was an old gas furnace, reliable, but it needed TLC. Every fall, I would clean it, change the filter, check the pilot light, and make sure everything was in working order for the winter. It was one of those invisible jobs, the kind you only notice when it's not done. This year, following the new rules, I didn't touch it. The first truly cold night of the year arrived. The temperature dropped close to freezing. Haley cranked up the thermostat before we went to bed. I woke up around 3 a.m. It was cold, colder than it should have been. I could see my breath in the air. I checked the thermostat. The house temperature was 52 degrees. The heat was set to 70. The furnace wasn't working. I knew exactly what it was. The filter was probably clogged solid with a year's worth of dust, causing the system to overheat and shut itself down as a safety precaution. A $5 part and 10 minutes of work. In the old days, I would have been down in the basement in a heartbeat, flashlight in my mouth, getting it running again. Now, I just put on an extra blanket and went back to sleep. The next morning, the house was an icebox. Jet came into my room wearing his winter coat. "Dad, it's freezing." I got him bundled up and made him hot chocolate on my camping stove. Haley came downstairs, wrapped in a comforter, teeth chattering. "Why is it so cold? What's wrong with the heat?" "The furnace isn't working," I said, handing Jet his breakfast. She stared at me, waiting. The look on her face was clear. "Well, go fix it." I just stared back. "What?" she finally snapped. "It's the furnace. You have to fix it." "Do I?" I asked calmly. Fixing mechanical things is a very traditional male gender role. I wouldn't want to oppress you with my toxic competence. Her face went through about 5 different emotions. Shock, confusion, fury, panic, and then a strange kind of desperation. "John, this isn't a joke. Our son is freezing." "I know. That's why I put him in a coat and made him a warm drink. He'll be fine at school." "You're a construction worker. You know how this stuff works. Just go down there and fix it." I took a slow sip of my coffee. I do know how it works, and on a job site, I get paid a very good hourly wage for that knowledge. I'm not going to perform free labor in a home where my contributions are devalued and dismissed as a hobby. The word hobby hung in the air between us. She flinched, remembering that day in the driveway. She was starting to get it, but she was too proud to admit it. Fine, I'll do it myself. She stomped down to the basement. I heard her banging around for about 10 minutes. Then I heard a loud clank, followed by a hiss and the distinct smell of natural gas. My blood ran cold. That was the one thing I hadn't counted on. Her making things worse, dangerously worse. I flew down the stairs. What did you do? She was standing near the furnace, a wrench in her hand. She had tried to tighten a nut on the main gas line. She had cracked the fitting. The hissing was loud now. The smell was overpowering. I didn't yell. I didn't have time. Get out. Get Jet and get out of the house right now. Go to the neighbors. Call the gas company. The panic in my voice finally broke through her pride. She scrambled up the stairs. I ran to the gas meter outside and shut off the main valve to the house. Then I went through and opened all the windows to air the place out. It was a close call, a genuinely dangerous situation created by her stubborn refusal to admit she needed help. An hour later, a guy from the gas company was there. He red-tagged our furnace, meaning it was unsafe to operate until it was professionally repaired and inspected. The repair wasn't simple anymore. It wasn't just a filter. She had damaged the gas inlet manifold. Haley was forced to call an HVAC company. Since it was an emergency call, the price was astronomical. The technician who showed up was a guy I knew from one of my job sites, a guy named Trey. He walked in, saw me, and gave me a nod. He took one look at the furnace and the cracked fitting. He whistled. Someone really did a number on this. He didn't say anything else, but he knew. He could read the whole story right there. Trey spent 4 hours replacing the part, cleaning the whole system, replacing the filter, and running a full safety inspection. While he worked, Haley sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in 3 blankets, staring at the wall. I took Jet to the park to keep him out of the cold house. When I got back, Trey was just finishing up the paperwork. He handed Haley the bill. I saw her face go pale. I looked over her shoulder. The total was $1,500, emergency call-out fee, weekend labor rates, cost of parts, safety inspection fee. It was all of our savings for the small vacation we had planned. Gone. That night, the heat was on. The house was warm, but the chill between us was colder than ever. She finally broke. She came to me while I was watching TV. She was crying, not angry tears, sad, defeated tears. Okay, you win, she whispered. I get it, I was wrong. She talked for a long time, about how she felt unappreciated, how Ivana made everything sound so simple, how she didn't realize how much I actually did because she never saw it. She said she was sorry. She said she wanted things to go back to the way they were. I appreciate you, John, she said. I appreciate all the things you do to keep this house running. I listened. I didn't interrupt. And when she was finished, I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No, I told you so. Just a deep, hollow emptiness, because I realized the truth. She didn't appreciate me. She appreciated the free labor. She appreciated the convenience. She appreciated the money I saved her. Her apology wasn't born from a place of respect. It was born from a place of desperation. She didn't miss her husband. She missed her handyman. It's too late, Haley, I said, my voice flat. She looked confused. What do you mean? I said I was sorry. We can fix this. I shook my head. No, we can't. You don't fix this kind of thing. I stood up and went into my office. I came back with a folder. I had been seeing a lawyer for the past month. The papers were already drawn up. I placed the divorce papers on the coffee table in front of her. You showed me what you think of me, I said. You think my skills, my time, my effort are worthless. You think my only purpose is to make your life easier. That's not a marriage. That's a service contract. And I'm canceling it. The look on her face was something I'll never forget. It was the face of someone who had played a stupid game and was now faced with a very real prize. I had already packed a bag. I had already put a deposit down on an apartment. I'm leaving tonight, I said. My lawyer will be in touch with yours. I walked out the door, and I didn't look back. Fast forward 6 months. Divorce finalized. I have 50-50 custody of Jet. My apartment is clean, quiet, and peaceful. Wallet is fat because I'm not funding her consumerism. Heard from a buddy that Haley's house is falling apart. Roof leaking, grass knee-high. She's dating some male feminist soy boy who can't change a light bulb. She called me last week asking if I could come look at her washing machine for old time's sake. I told her my hourly rate is 100s, minimum 4 hours. She hung up. Gentlemen, never let anyone tell you your labor has no value. Sometimes the only way to win is to let them have exactly what they asked for.